And welcome, folks, to another edition of the Michigan Football Breakdown focused on the offense with Al Borges looking more gorgeous than ever. Al, as
Oh,
always.
much more gorgeous than last week, Sam. Much more gorgeous. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a glow about you
There's a
when
glow.
Michigan wins. I don't know if anyone's ever told you that.
I'm a glower.
Tend to tend to glisten there a little
Yeah,
bit.
they claim that the glow comes off my bald forehead more often than not. But yeah, I'll take it. I'll take the glow either way. I don't care. Doesn't matter.
Yeah, man, it was a test of resolve in this Michigan football team, a test of uh, camaraderie, togetherness, brotherhood, a test of accountability is probably the biggest word that I want to talk about. Accountability across the board. It comes for goes for players and coaches. When you win, you said something when we were in the press box. You said, it's a team game, and I
Team
said
game.
this last week. It's a team game. When you win big,
Yeah.
it's never just the coaches. It's never just the players. When you lose big, it's never just the coaches. It's never just the players. It's both, and I felt like we touched on both last week and called out the issues with both last week. And Al, I felt like both stepped up in a big way this week. So just your broad brush reaction. And I know you had some comments on both offense and defense last week. Before we get into your full offensive breakdown, just your thoughts on the entire team responding from Sharon on down.
Well, first of all, Washington is a good team. Okay, let's be clear on this. This was not what guys would call a get well game, which is a game I'm saying, yeah, everything goes good because or goes well because your opponent isn't very good. Well, Washington's a good team, very formidable, and they showed up on both sides of the ball. Offensively, they reduced their errors, and defensively, they went to a more simplistic package and reduce their errors. And I think that was a big difference in the game on both sides of the ball. The production was really good. It was a rough go. I mean, there were probably opportunities to make that game uh, more more Michigan-like. More there were opportunities to score, put the game not necessarily out of reach, but really tough for Washington. But that didn't really happen until late. So hats off to Washington. They played hard, but they did not play as well as Michigan did on either side of the ball.
Yeah, and Michigan had a lot to do with that when you consider that, this defense last year was really off kilter in this game. They got tempoed. Jed kind of really had his way and tried to do some of the things he did last year, tried to do some of the things that Ohio State and that USC did last week.
Yes,
Neither were successful.
They did. They did. Pretty start the game. They looked like a USC game plan, running split zones and tight end screens and all kinds of stuff. That looked familiar from the week before. But they got it fixed. To their credit, played a fantastic football game for 4 quarters. I mean, they really did. And offensively, very solid. Rush the football. I think Bryce Underwood took another step. Still had some issues that can easily be fixed, but played a pretty good game overall. I mean, his numbers were good. I think how the approach is really starting to take, Sam. Okay, the nuance, the new stuff. The 16 open zone plays running the game, 17 RPOs running the game, and of the 17 RPOs, 5 of them were thrown for over almost 9 yards a pop. 11 times those RPOs were handed off for almost 7 yards a pop. So that package fits their quarterback well, okay, and is being executed, I think, extremely well. But what's really good to me, okay, and this is what I like, is they're not dependent on RPOs the whole game, which I love RPOs, but I think they can be overused, okay? And at the end of the day, I counted 24 runs that had no tags of RPOs, okay? 17 did. I explained what happened on those. But 24 times, the coach was controlling the run-to-pass ratio. And I think when it's crucial time in a game, that's got to happen. You don't want to put every play in the quarterback's hands. He's got enough responsibility with all the other stuff that he has to do, but it was really well structured. So I liked it. The approach was just continues to get better, in my opinion. They threw, I believe, 14 dropback passes. Got pressured 6 times. He was 6 for 11 on dropbacks. Now, when I talk about play action passes, he was 6 for 11 for 81 yards. He had to scramble runs 3 times. Okay, so that was good. Another thing that we mentioned that Coach Lindsey's brought to this offense is the screening game. There were 4 screens thrown in the game. Three were dual screens, and the dual screen is simply a screen to the boundary, to the back, a screen to the field, to the wide receiver. The quarterback simply reads the end on the drop. If the end attacks him, he'll dump the swing screen to the back. If the end slow plays it, he'll turn and throw the ball to the jailbreak screen to the field. Okay. Well, 2 of them were, one of them was good. 2 of them were not as good, but the one that was good, they caught him in a 0 blitz and it was a touchdown. So that's what screening can do for you. Remember, I told you, it's not going to be an every time proposition. Screens are finesse plays that can be stopped by lazy players. So, but they're worth it because generally that one that you gets you something big. And in this case, it was a touchdown. So the screening game continues to take the next step. He threw 4 nakeds in the game. He hit 2 of them, one for +7, another one for +10. They had a holding penalty on one where I thought he made a bad read. He should have thrown the ball out in the flat right now, but I don't think it mattered because I think it was going to get called back anyway. But he was very good. He continues to be good on those. There were no sprints in this game. And generally, they'll give you 2 or 3 sprint passes, but they did run the play that's as dependable as any in their offense, and that's their sprint draw, which they'll call maybe twice a game, maybe as many as 3. But they run that sprint draw with that turn back look that looks just like their sprint package. And in crucial situations, that play has come through for them time and time again. So I really, really like that. Bryce, I had him with 3 bad throws, a few footwork issues, a couple bad reads, but showed tremendous composure as he does all the time on. And those are nitpick grades, but for the most part, he did take another step this week, and a pretty good step, I thought. So showed a lot of ability to again get out of some messes like he's so good at throwing balls on the run. Again, I believe after watching 7 games, I think the best thing that he does is RPO. I think that's the best thing he does. The second best thing he does is throw off a movement, whether it be sprints or nakeds or whatever. I think his drop back game is coming. It's coming, and it showed some progress this week. I'll tell you this, Sam, that Marshall kid, he runs hard now. He runs hard. Now he may not have the explosive ability as Haynes, but he is an offensive lineman's dream because there is seldom going to be a minus play. He is going to find a way with any room at all to gain 3 to 5 yards and sometimes more. He runs the Michigan running game very well. He fits the Michigan running game. So he did an excellent job there. And I really thought, I think the coach of the week is Steve Casulo. He took 2 tight ends that had not played a lot. Okay. And what was amazing is when I went through the grading, how well they blocked. Because that was my biggest concern. When you don't play with your regular tight ends, you got to put in guys that have trouble sometimes holding up against that stout 7 technique when you're trying to run outside zones and all that kind of stuff. But they held up well. They did a very nice job, I thought. And he did a good job of preparing those guys without Klein being in the lineup. The other thing, too, that was a pleasant surprise, although it didn't go completely smoothly, was when Frazier came in the game for Link, okay? Because as soon as he went into the game for Link, you get concerned. That's a tough position. That's left tackle. He's got to protect. He's got to block for the run game. And there were times he got overpowered a little bit early on. But when he got settled in, he played pretty good. The kid's got really good feet. He's about a year away from probably being a really good player, but I was pleasantly surprised with how he held up as the game went in this game. So, and again, I don't know, you might have heard something on Link's situation, but I think he'll be a capable replacement and will probably improve in every football game. So I like the overall effort. Again, there's a lot of things to coach still. I don't think there's any question about that because I really believe they could have scored more points. Okay. But
Mhm.
that said, the way the defense played in this football game, they scored enough. So,
Yeah, man. So a lot of things to unpack in this piece, the in this episode. A couple of things I want to focus on from my perspective, and a lot of the fans have a lot of questions as they're starting to come in. But 2 points. You mentioned Bryce being an excellent RPO guy. Already, you can see that. They and Chip, especially, coming in wanting to implement that, recognizing that being in Bryce's sort of background coming in and accentuating that positive, right? Making sure, okay, let's identify the things he does well and let's play off of that. And they
mhm,
have really, I think, done a great job of leaning into what is his comfort zone. What do we
mhm,
do to help get him into some rhythm? We talked about this a lot. I that's clearly one of the things that they do. I think running him might be another thing, but RPOs have been a big deal. That has been a transition for Sharon, Al, because I know
mhm.
you remember
Yeah.
I used to ask you,
Oh, I know.
Al,
Uh,
Al, why aren't they
and
RPOing? Why?
what would I say, Sam? They are not an RPO team. They're not going to do it. But let me say that, and I'll let you finish your point in a minute. But I want to say this: thank goodness they have done it, because I don't think he would be near as effective if they used the same philosophy in past years. I think this fits him so much better, and it's yielding a lot of yards.
It
Okay,
is.
I go back through it and I look at how many yards per attempt and all that. I crunch numbers that other guys don't, and I'm
Right.
telling you, it has been an incredible addition to their offense, particularly in light of the skill set and background of the quarterback.
See, but I think what you're doing here is giving people the nuance. And it's important that they understand the nuance here in that the tags. That you said the RPO tags that they're putting on place, because I would be tempted, I especially last year with the because I'd be tempted to put a tag on every run play, right? It's like, hey, I'm that way we have a chance to always be right. We at least have a chance. But there's a danger in that. And this gets back to what Sharon's reluctance was. You remember when Gaddis was here, he would RPO some. So they were in the playbook and JJ seemed comfortable with it. But when he left, RPOs are still in the playbook. You might see him you might see a in RPO once every 3 games. Like, what the hell? Why? And then last year, I think they RPO'd some in the Northwestern game. But other than that, you really didn't see him. It's like this. I mean, you would think that they would incorporate a little more of this. And why? Why won't they? And it's because you want to control your run pass mix. You want to control when you run the football, and you cannot control that when you are calling RPOs. The defense has a lot to do with that. And really, as Denara pointed out, at the end of the day, the quarterback controls it. As much as
Yes,
you say the
yes.
defense controls it, the quarterback has the ultimate
Yeah,
say because
sometimes yeah, some quarterbacks have never seen a look they didn't like to throw on. Okay, quarterbacks like to throw, so there's a point you got to temper that a little bit with how you call. Sam, the last 13 runs of the game had no RPO tags. Had no RPO tags. So the bulk of those 24 runs that I mentioned that weren't RPO tags were at the end of the game. So
yeah.
then you don't want the ball thrown. You want to wind time. You want to run clock. You want to make it tough on your opponent, keep the ball in bounds, all that stuff. So it's purposeful and it's smart. And that's how you want to play. You have to be able to play situational football. I was taught this years ago. You can't be a purist, because purists do not work well to situational football. You have to be able to shift gears and do things to help you win that may not be real glamorous. Okay.
So understand what we're saying. You could be running counters, and you can put RPO a counter. You can run
Which they
duos.
did.
Yeah,
Which they
run
did.
duos. It's the first time we were talking about it. We seen an RPO a duo, but you could throw RPO on a duo, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is one of the things that can be very effective in keeping teams honest in making those plays. But it can get you in trouble if at the end of the game you want to run the football. You're trying
Mm-hmm.
to bleed clock. You got an RPO on a play and the quarterback throws the football. What if it's incomplete? Well, you call the RPO, coach. Whose fault is that? Is that your fault or is that the kid's fault for throwing the football in a late game situation?
That's a coach's fault. That's good. Play 4 in this football game was a counter with a line route RPO. Play 53 was a counter without an RPO. Figure it out. Okay. Play 53 was much later in the football game. The climate of the game, the landscape of the game had changed. The thinking has to change.
Yeah. Chip is doing a great job of maintaining that balance and sort of finding the happy medium between, running. Hey, RPOs are like 60%, 70% of my call sheet. And Sharon is like, I hardly ever call RPOs. what did I think? I asked him about this in the summer when we were talking about what Chip's influence would be, loaded boxes. And I said to Sharon, I said, Sharon, I said, Coach Moore, some coaches RPO that. And he said, yeah. And some guys block all 11. Right?
But they won a national championship doing that. It's hard to call him wrong. You know what I mean? But I just think this approach fits the quarterback.
Right.
Okay. That's all I'm saying. There may be another year you don't want to run a lot of RPOs. I don't know. I mean, you can't say they're wrong. Okay.
Right.
Just because every time the box is loaded that you're don't have an answer to it other than beat the guy. They did a entire season going about that and won every single game they played. So, like I say, you got to have an answer to what your personnel can do, and it appears that they've done that.
Yeah, that was absolutely huge. And then the other part, Al, that I was really curious your perspective. Talking about Bryce's growth as a pocket passer. If we know, you can see from game 1, throwing on the run is something he's really good at, right? Throwing on the move, I should say, is something that he's really good at, really comfortable with. So talking about RPOs being his comfort zone, nakeds, sprint outs, dashes, anything with movement, throws off a movement, he is like, wow, he is really good at doing it. Fluid, in rhythm, accurate, all of that. Footwork tied in with the throw on the move. Got all those things that you're talking about. Straight drop backs, Al, work in progress. Work in progress, right? Sometimes it's been hit or miss. But in this game, Coach Borges, it felt like to me as a novice observer that this was his best effort. I'm curious what you think.
Yeah, I think it was a step in the right direction. Okay, I really do. And what encapsulates that, I think, the best was that 3rd and 11 play 55 on the all-22, where they had a little dig route by the outside receiver and a corner route by the tight end, and the tight end blocked and kind of delayed, and he put that ball right on the money. I mean, it was an incredible throw from the pocket under pressure. I listen. Every time I watch drop back protection, I always put good protection, pressure, good protection or pressure. Okay, this was a pressure. This was not particularly good protection, and he put that ball right on a dime, and that was not an easy throw. I just want you to know that was not. And I thought probably the best throw I've seen him make since he's been at Michigan. So it's headed in the right direction. And, sometimes it's baby steps and sometimes it's not as fast as you want, but he is getting better.
Yeah. Yeah, it was. He had the play. And the other thing that really stands out to me about Bryce, I said this to Denard, that pass play went to Tonielli. And he had a seam route to Tonielli, also from the pocket early in the game, where it was a perfect pass. No pressure on the play, but it was a beautiful ball early in the game to Tonielli. And Tonielli wasn't able to bring it in. And when it's for the money at the end of the game, where you could see how a young quarterback might predetermine who he wants to go to in such a clutch situation. Hey, I'm like he did at the end of like he did late in the USC game. I'm going to McCulley on this play. Wound up being a pick. This shows progress. Hey, I'm not going to have the residual effect of a guy dropping a ball on me. Right. No. I'm going to learn from my mistake in the last game. I'm not going to predetermine where I'm going to go with the football. I'm going to go to who's open. He goes to Tonielli for the money.
Yeah,
on
really
3rd.
good throw.
It was right
Yeah,
there.
they were in a split safety look, too deep. I believe they had hitch verticals called, which two outside receivers are hitching. If there's free access on the hitches, he can just hit those right now. As it turned out, they rolled the corners up, so I think they converted. I don't think it was a 4 vertical, but it's hard to tell when all 4 go vertical because they're going to do that versus cover 2 anyway, right? But he saw the coverage, a safety split. He dropped the ball, what I call a little 2 throw, where you're trying to throw the ball in front of the deep defender and behind the underneath defender. But it was a perfect 2 throw, but he just couldn't hold it. But in terms of the understanding of the play, the timing of the pass, and the location, it looked like there was some real growth on that play.
A couple of specific plays that I want you to talk about before we get to the grades and then the questions from the people. So we've been talking about the bluff zone. They ran a bluff in this game, and Al, I was like, yes. And then it was tackle for 3 yards, and I looked over to you. I said, Al, who made that tackle? Because I just knew it was going to work. I said, who the hell made that tackle? Like, come on, man.
Oh,
You know, I'm calling for the play. The next thing you know, it's tackle for 3 yards.
Yeah.
And we look at the tape, and it's the corner making the tackle. Corner's not supposed to make that tackle.
No. What happened, the outside receiver, based on how you coach this, guys coach this different, okay? So I'm going to say that there's more than one way to skin a cat. But what generally happens on the open side, the split end side, the X receiver is responsible for what we call push crack, which means he will push the corner back to see the location of the safety. The safety's coming down, okay? If he's coming down in a quarters type look, he will push this corner back and then crack the safety, okay? But as he comes off to push the corner, if the corner ascends and the safety rolls to the middle of the field, he just continues to engage the corner because he doesn't see the safety as an immediate threat, right? We'll say we'll take that guy one-on-one since he's coming from deep third. Well, in that case, they rolled a deep third, but the receiver left and went to the free safety, okay? Which now frees the corner up. Now, if you got Denard Robinson, not that Bryce isn't a capable runner, because he is, but Denard Robinson is another dimension of a capable runner. If you got Denard Robinson, he'd just beat the corner. I mean, it very seldom was a corner going to tackle Denard. But in this instance, you'd rather do it where he didn't have to block. He didn't have to beat the corner, okay? Because there was no alley player on the Bluff side. Much better off just engaging the corner and pulling back. It would have been a lot bigger gain. So I just think that might have been an error. I don't know, but in our offense, that would have been an error. And I'm guessing it probably was in this one too.
Yeah, and so for folks who are maybe a little lost with what a bluff is, to try to explain it to you. If you've ever watched a film study, the bluff is off the split zone. On a split zone, your H-back is coming across across the backfield to kick out that edge player. So imagine Max Bredesen is lined up on one side of the backfield. He comes across the backfield to kick out that edge player on a split zone. Well, on a bluff, he comes across the backfield and acts like he's going to block that edge player. But instead of blocking that edge player, he bluffs him. And that edge player is like, oh, shoot, he's about to block me. And it always invites that guy upfield, right? So, and Max, kind of weaves around him, and he's up in the alley. Well, you got Bryce right behind him. And Bryce can, he can look and see, he can read the situation. As now he's on the edge, he can flick it off to Max. Or if it looks really, really, people are using supple in the chat. If it looks really supple, he can run it. And he has a blocker in the alley. It's a great play. Especially
really
you got to be running working, right? It's a great play. And I thought that was going to be a great play, but the corner came off and made the tackle because the wide receiver to that side leaves the corner and goes for the safety. And I was saying to Denard, hey man, go get the corner. If you're the quarterback, wouldn't you rather have a guy coming from depth that you can be one-on-one with and make a move on him from depth? And you explained there are scenarios where the receiver would get the corner as opposed to the safety and vice versa.
Right. Would you what they did it off? Unlike most guys, they did it off their outside zone, which they run so much now, right?
Mhm.
So it made more sense. It either way, you're conflicting that edge player. Okay, it didn't matter outside, inside zone, whatever. He's either got to squeeze, right, turn and wrong arm, or soft play it so much you can just give the ball to the back, right? Any one of those. But so uh, with that, the quarterback now, when we used to tell him, when we called a bluff, we call a split zone, that was a give, okay? When we called a bluff, be more aggressive with the pull than you would normally be on a normal zone read. So if
Mhm.
he flinches inside a little bit, pull it.
Mhm.
If he's real soft, go ahead and hand him the ball, okay? Because you're going to hand the ball off on some bluff zones. That's going to happen. But because we know uh, that it can be very effective perimeter play, it can be a very effective perimeter play. So we're thinking a little more pull.
Yeah. So Denard and I got into a little bit of a debate, and I think
Bernard.
yeah.
You mean Devin, right?
No, it wasn't. Although
Oh,
Devin did
oh,
call me. Devin
oh,
did. This is funny.
well,
This is funny.
you're not
This
going to
is
get
funny.
away with that.
Devin, so
No.
Devin called me after the show.
I'll get my
So
call here.
Devin watched the Monday Morning Quarterback, and he was like,
Yeah.
"Why did you let Denard get away with that?" He said, "No." First, he said, "I'm proud of you." He said, "I'm proud of you. You didn't let Denard get away with that soft stuff." He said, "But you should have came harder at Denard for that." And I knew exactly what he was talking about. I knew exactly what he was talking about. He was like, "Man, you can't let Denard say that he threw the ball too hard on 4th and 1." It's like, man, are you kidding me? You got to catch that. It's like that Denard was being soft. So what's wrong with Denard? So Al, let's get into the play, right? You're a play caller, and you know I didn't want it to sound like because I love Samaj. I mean,
Mhm.
that's my dude. I try to be as fair. I got to be fair and balanced. Like I can't sugarcoat, but
Mhm.
I'm also not going to be a butthole about it. I'm not going to be calling dudes out and saying they suck and all that kind of stuff. This particular play was just a brass tacks. Who's right and who's wrong on a play? Who's at fault and how do you fix it? This particular instance was a 4th and 1. I can't remember what the run fake was, what the run play was, but he was wide open, gonna be running towards the flat, and Bryce delivers a ball that was ultimately dropped.
Mm.
Denard said that I think they're both at fault because you got to take something off that ball, and I said immediately, I said, Denard, man, bro, I think Mosh got to catch that ball. And
Mhm.
he said that's true, but he didn't give his receiver a chance to get his head around on the ball. You got to take some steam off of that ball because it was just a little too much. You got to let his head turn around first. And I said, "Oh, okay, you're the quarterback and receiver. I defer to you some, but I don't totally agree." And he said, "You don't totally agree. Let's watch it." And Al, when we watched it, now because we know that Bryce has had some heat on some short throws that he has to get better, more consistent at taking things off. Al, he took some heat off that ball. Like you watched all 22. We know Bryce can be overpowering. He took some. That was an off speed pitch. That was a knuckle, not a knuckleball, but that was like. So, Coach Borges, can you be the settling voice on this for us between Devin, who said absolutely there's no nuance, Denard, who said it's kind of on both guys, and me, who I tend to think that you got to catch that. I'm trying to be deferential to Denard somewhat, but I'm kind of siding with Devin, even though I don't want to.
Well, I just tell you how if I grade him, I'd grade a drop pass. I think you have to. I mean, and I think if you asked uh, Samaj, I don't know this, but he'd probably tell you I should have caught it. He probably. But again, one thing I'm going to say, and this lends a little more credence to Denard's discussion, is you have to throw a ball and know all your personnel, right? Because Samaj has struggled with some drops this year. He's had a few, and you have to know your personnel and just be mindful of the tempo of the throw. Okay. Personally, I thought the throw should have been caught and run with. I thought it was an incredible call at the time. I mean, you couldn't have called a better play because that was not going to be a little gain. They had all sucked in. They had called an open inside zone play, and everybody was playing it because it was 4th and 1. And the issues that Denard brings up, though, I think are something to consider. Is one, whenever you're shooting into the flat and anticipating a quick throw, the key coaching point is get your head around. Get your head around, because it's tough sometimes when you're trying to haul ass to the flat and snap your head to see the ball when you know there's a good possibility it's coming out fast. Okay, so you got to get your head around. Number 2 coaching point for the quarterback is if it's not around, soften the throw so he can see it, because a ball can eat the guy up sometimes. If it's on him so fast. Now again, I'm going to say, if you wanted me to be the judge, I think the ball should have been caught. I'm going to say that. I believe that. But I'm just telling you, there are components there that go beyond just the drop pass, okay, that everybody should be mindful of when they run the play again or something similar to the play, because they have a lot of plays in their offense where the ball comes out fast in the flat, and the receiver, whoever he be, has to get his head around fast. So live and learn, know you're throwing the ball to, but when you're the receiver, the way the position's named is it tells you what you got to be able to do, and that's receive. So make a play, and that's all I really have to say about that.
Yeah, man. He talked for a half hour, so I'm mad at Denard because he made Devin call and talk my ear off for a half hour about that. He was like, Denard is just being so. Denard, he never would have said that if he wasn't on the show.
Well, Denard said that he was a receiver and he's done like Devin. He's really done both, because he did some of that in pro ball and a little bit with us. Actually, at the end when he couldn't throw the ball, we used him in a couple short balls. But I just told him, I said, you don't even count. Your hands weren't good enough to account for that. So, you can weigh in, but I'm gonna consider the source.
Yeah.
He said, "No, I had great hands." I know what he was going to say.
I will say this:
he had such great hands. He dropped more snaps than any quarterback. He dropped more quarterback drops, dropped more shotgun snaps than any quarterback I've ever had. The good news is he turned them into touchdowns a lot of times. So
let me tell you this, though: you watch the end zone copy of that play, and you can see Bryce being very intentional in taking something off of that throw. Now, you could argue that he needs to take more off the throw, maybe, but clearly he is taking something off of that throw. But you live and you learn. I would wonder, as a play caller, are you cognizant of, man, you know what? He's Maj has been struggling a little bit. It's a high leverage situation. How does that factor into your thought process on a play call like that? Or does it at all?
Yeah, you always second guess, should I have done it with somebody else? But Samaj Morgan's a very capable kid. And Samaj gets that ball in the open field, look out. I mean, that play could have been. So, if it's habitual, if you're saying, then maybe you make a personnel change. But I believe that kid's a very capable player. And he's done some things for Michigan with regard to run after catch, punt returns. You can see what his skill set is. So I can see why they used him. And, you can beat yourself up after the fact a million different ways. But the fact is there are going to be drop passes in the game. You don't think that way when it happens, particularly if you're the play caller, because all you see is a missed opportunity and a cuss word, right? Mm-hmm. But it's the reality of football. Samaj has got to recover. Quarterback's got to recover, onward and upward. And then when you get back into the room, after the game, you reassess. You said, well, did we throw it to the right guy, blah, blah, blah. But I just think it's just one of those plays that didn't happen. And that is football. That happens. Things don't happen in football sometimes the way you anticipate, and even if you make a fantastic play call.
Yeah. Great stuff, Coach Borges. All right. Now that it's about that time that we get to the grades, and then we'll start getting to the questions for the people, and the questions have been mounting, and I have made it a point to be logging the questions in the chat. So we will be getting to them. If you have questions for Al, if you haven't already put them in now. If you have questions for Al, put them in the chat now, and we will start knocking them down. With that, Al, give us your grades.
Yeah, I gave the O-line a B to B minus. I thought they were good. They weren't great at times. Again, there were some pressures, but they were pretty darn solid when push came to shove. Again, I had 14 drop back passes with, I believe, 6 or 7 pressures. I can't remember exactly what it was, but right in there. And even on those pressures, he completed some balls. So, that means somebody was near the quarterback when he threw it. That doesn't mean they got, that they necessarily hit him all the time. But so I thought they were pretty good. The wide receivers could have played. I thought they were CC plus, not as good as they could be, but not terrible either. The tight ends, I gave a solid B. And you could have even made a case for better than that. But they were solid B. Some guys came to the forefront that you'd never even heard their names before. And I think that's a tribute to the guy coaching them, but and them. I mean, again, it's a joint effort, but to get him prepped that well. I gave Bryce a B. I thought he had a good, solid football game. I'm a little bit more of a quarterback purist, so I see some of the errors sometimes other people don't see. But he was pretty darn good at the end of the day, and particularly in the run pass option game. Running backs B plus. I love watching Marshall run the football. And he took most. I know other guys subbed in there a little bit, but he kind of carried the load, and he is just a stud. I'd have given him an A if he'd have broke a long run, but there was just some tough yardage in there. An offensive lineman stream, man. It's going to be plus yards. Just don't get him hit in the backfield. It's going to be plus yards every time. So, but the offense was a solid B with room for improvement, but pretty darn good recovery off the USC game.
Absolutely. If you have questions for Al, put them in the chat now. Again, if you have questions for Al, put them in the chat now, and we will start knocking them down from the people. A lot of them have already come in. And so let's go ahead and put the first one up. And it comes from Jester's Jinx with the super chat. We always love you, super chatters. That's how the love comes directly to us. Well, not directly. I mean, YouTube takes their cut, but we appreciate the super chatters because that shows us direct support and monetary support. We appreciate that. Says, hey, gorgeous, I'm back again. How do we make it? Yeah, how do we make it to Ohio without getting a trap loss, but also ensuring that we are prepared for that W against that team down south? This has become my favorite show.
Well, I appreciate that.
How about that?
I appreciate that. I don't think you got to worry too much about trap games. They've lost 2 games. Okay, they know the repercussions of playing bad. That doesn't mean they can't lose. Sure, you can. But I think that this team has experienced enough ebb and flow to realize what it takes to prepare for a game that you might consider a trap game. Now, this week, it's not a trap. It's a rival game, okay? And there's plenty of motivation to play this one. But the future games you might be able to label as trap games. But I just don't think if you were undefeated, that's a trap you could fall into easily. But they've lost 2. They've learned some hard lessons. And I think they'll come in ready. Win or lose, I think they'll come in ready emotionally.
Al, you've coached for quite some time. We won't get into how many years. I imagine that you've been a part of some very, very difficult losses where blame could be spread around, right? What was it like? What was the best case scenario for how it was handled after the fact? Because Sharon and even the player said, hey, we had the depiction, he didn't get vivid with the description. But what he did say, we had some tough conversations in practice. And what it suggested was there was high accountability in practice throughout the week. So what was that like for you? I'm not saying what it was saying for what you said with Michigan was like, but what was it like for you in those situations? And how did it work out when it was best in your career?
Yeah, that's painful. Okay. It's painful enough to lose the game. Okay. First thing is particularly the play callers, the defense and offensive coordinator, and the head coach have really got to block out the noise because everybody's so emotional about the loss. They'll just, everybody wants to fire you. That's just part of the deal. The best thing to do is just don't listen to any of that because, you want to jump off a bridge, you do that. So just keep that out there. They have less expertise. They may be right in some instances, but you can't let that get to you, number one. And number two, sit down with yourself and be brutally honest about how you went about your plan, because sometimes you have some things that you could have done better. You could have put the players in some better situations. Sometimes some untimely calls that on the game plan looked really good. I mean, but maybe you just didn't time them out. Because remember, in play calling, Sam, and you've heard me say it dozens of times, it's not what you call, it's when you call it. Okay, because that really will dictate a lot of whether it succeeds or fails. So you got to be brutally honest about how you approached it, and then you got to look at your personnel. Again, I mentioned this last week, I think it was. Don't overreact and don't underreact. Are the people that you're having do what you need to be done getting the job done, and are we as coaches using our weapons we're using our weapons the way they need to be used to win a game. A guy's touching the ball enough that should be touching the ball. Okay, so those are all things. When you fail, you gotta turn over every rock and think of it not emotionally, if you can avoid that, but more rationally. Now, sometimes it turns to emotion when you're because sometimes it takes some confrontation, whether you like it or not. It takes some confrontation to get better. You know what I mean? And as long as it's not mean-spirited and ugly, it can be very, very productive. But sometimes feelings can get hurt. You know what I mean? Players and coaches alike. But by the time you hit time to practice, whether it's Tuesday or whatever, all that's got to be gone. We are now in game prep. We have addressed the situations as they need to be addressed, and we are now ready to full speed ahead for the next opponent. Now, all that stuff sounds really good, what I just said. It's not easy when you're losing. And when you're losing in a way that makes you really look bad, I'm not talking about a 1-point loss or something like that, because those are horrible too. But when you don't show, that's really painful. I've had those. Every guy that's done it as long as I have has had those. That's coaching. That's part of the deal. But as long as you can keep your wit about you, as long as you can represent to the team good leadership and good strength, and be, as Lloyd Carr said, be stronger than the situation, you have a chance to recover. But as soon as you go in the tank and start pointing fingers, whether it be pointing fingers at players, offense pointing fingers at the defense, you're on the road to hell, okay? Because now it's going to become divisive, you're going to have a split locker room, and you're asking for more losses.
All right, great stuff. Let's go back to the questions for Al. Another super chatter. This from Jeff Charamita. Coach, Marshall ran great, but did you see a couple of plays where Haynes could have took it outside for long distance if he could have played?
I'm not sure. No, I don't know. I think every runner, if you hand him the ball, would do something different with the run. It may be slightly different. Maybe he'll break a tackle that the other guy wouldn't break. Maybe he'll make a cut that the other guy wouldn't make. Okay. But all that said, I didn't see when I watch a run game, I see where the ball, based on the movement of the defense and the blocking patterns, where the ball should have been run. Okay. And sometimes it's not run where it should have been run, yet it yields good yardage, in which case you gotta depend a little bit on the running back's instincts. But if you ask me, is there a time he could have popped it outside? Don't remember any, and again, I'm great in every play where I said, oh God, he should have popped that outside. I don't remember a play like that. I don't. So I'm not saying it couldn't happen because I'm not the end all, but I don't think so. I think this kid just ran the football so hard, and he's very good. See, that's that outside zone play. Yes, it is a start outside play, but so often it comes underneath, Sam. Comes underneath. So now the one cut runners like him, the power guys that get downhill fast, it just suits them so well.
Yes, sir. All right. Let's get another super chatter in here. So we appreciate the super chats, man. You guys are showing love today. Gotta love it. ZH says, Sam, here's $1.99 for the Samaj Sticky Gloves fund.
Well, I don't pick on Samaj. Samaj does some great things.
Yeah, he does. Hey, and he caught that one with some heat on it a little bit later in the game. So, that was good for him. Another super chatter. This one from Mission Forward 3. Coach Al, this Michigan team is pretty young. Many freshmen and sophomores getting PT. How do you assess the overall trajectory of the program?
Oh, my goodness. You got a freshman quarterback that's probably, if he can stay on this same course, going to be a high draft pick. Mm-hmm. You got some young offensive linemen that are getting to play. That, again, the residual of that is years down the road, they're going to be very, very capable. You saw that happen when they won the national championship. A lot of those guys had played years before, not quite as well, but in their that year, it all came together. I don't see any reason why you can't there. The thing that really had concerned me more than anything about that was the receivers. To be honest, I just was not seeing before Marsh, before McCulley and Samaj and them. I just was not seeing a lot of big playability, but now that's come up. So I believe the future of this program, when you consider running backs, from an offensive perspective, is very, very bright. There's some young stars in there that may not quite be stars yet, but I think are going to be. So if I was a Michigan fan, I'd sleep well knowing that the coming years should be pretty good.
All right. Another super chatter. We Being Cole says, we kept losing players to injuries, both tight ends, Babalola before the season started, both our starting guards, now Link, then Haynes got hurt. What is going on? And do you think we have issues with our strength and conditioning?
Oh, no. The strength and conditioning coach doesn't have anything. Now, he'll help you avoid some muscle injuries sometimes, but no, I never blame the strength and conditioning coach for injuries. Injuries can be hard to account for, man. Guys falling on dudes, that causes a lot of injuries, is falling on people, Sometimes a guy doesn't even get touched and puts his foot in the ground and blows his Achilles or blows his MCL, guys in an awkward position on a tackle so injuries are kind of an act of God sometimes. I just don't. I'm not saying that you can't prepare, but these strength coaches are incredible what they do with these guys now. They are year-round training. I mean, they are in tip-top condition when they play. So when they get injured, I don't think it has a damn thing to do with the strength coach.
Yeah, I think lumping all of those injuries together, I think is a mistake. Haynes got a rib injury, not to get specific about what it was, but he got a rib injury. Babalola blew an ACL. Link has had a knee where it got, he had a knee injury. I don't know the severity, so I don't want to say how significant, but this isn't that. None of those are strength and conditioning things. Now, soft tissue injuries, those are like if you have a rash of like hammies or a rash of ankles, I think now you start to, is there something?
Yeah, I would say more hamstrings and quads than ankles, but yeah, I think that can happen. And I've seen, very seldom, but I have seen a rash of hamstring injuries. And you got to, there's accountability for everything, right? You got to look at what you're doing that may be causing that, but I don't see any one injury that you can attribute to, on this team anyway, to strength and conditioning. I don't think so.
Yeah. So let's go back to the questions, as you guys have come, and I like how you're in a better mood, but that's what happens after a win, right, Al?
Yeah, the sharks in the water after a loss, Sam.
Oh man, yeah, they were. But you know what?
This week it's all streamers and kazoos, Sam.
Hey, guess what? We don't have those we don't have those Buckeye trolls in here pretending
Oh no, they don't come around when you win. They
that's
just
funny.
want to. They just
They were
want.
here strong last week. All right. P. Maximus says, please address the he said, please address the non-special teams unit, inconsistent punting, non-existent punt returns, missed field goals. These are all great points, Al. The special teams have hurt them in games this year.
Yeah, they have somewhat, and it's unusual because in the past, special teams at Michigan's been pretty salty. We're not used to missing field goals at
Right.
Michigan. Right? I mean, that just hasn't happened very much. And again, not being an expert kicking coach, if I wanted to go into all the technical facets of why he's missing kicks, I'm not going to do that. But that's something's got to be addressed, and you punt it better, get another punter. It's that simple, right? So you got one job to do, get it done, and if it doesn't get done, find somebody else to get it done. Okay, as a guy may kick 60 yards in practice and 20 in a game. I don't know because I've seen that happen, but it's just like any other position on the field that is assessed to the umpteen, and you have to perform if you want to keep playing. Simple as that. Kickers, punters, cover guys, returners, everything.
All right, gorgeous Borges. Let's get back to it and get the next question. And it comes from TB4093 on YouTube. It says, do you think the criticism of Wink is justified considering the youth of the players? I don't understand the second part of the question. And the criticism that Chip does get. Basically, do you think the criticism of of Wink is justified considering the youth of the players and the criticism that Chip does get? I don't understand.
Well, I would. That's just too broad for me. Yeah, I mean, every game the coordinator has criticism, and some of it's warranted. But I want to know exactly what you're criticizing, because I hear criticism sometimes. I said that's a bunch of crap. That's not true. But then I hear criticism other times. And I say, depending on what the critique is, it says, yeah, that's got to be considered. You know what I mean? So yeah, I'm sure there's warranted criticism, and I'm sure there's some that's all wet. Okay,
Yeah.
so in both instances, with a play caller, with a defensive play caller, because you're out there, you call how many? I think there were 70 something plays. Let me get this straight. There were 72 plays with a victory play at the end. 72 plays. That includes penalties and such. You think you're hitting on all 72 of those? You're crazy. You could pick it apart. Pick it apart. The same thing defensively. You could pick it apart. Particularly the more you do defensively, because people will attack how you went about some extravagant type defenses. And if they don't work, and then you're kind of out there. But yeah, I mean, there's legitimate criticism of all the play callers. I'm not going to say there isn't, but sometimes I hear things, and I watch the film, and I watch the defensive film, and I know how valid some of those criticism are. So, and some are not valid. They're just people complaining because they lost. They're still mad about losing, so they're coming up with stuff, But that's how I see it.
Yeah, you can see that some of the criticism was definitely warranted. Look at it, just how he handled 12 personnel packages from Washington this week versus last week. He handled them totally differently, and that was one of the things that we talked about ad nauseum on the breakdown. And Van said very pointedly, if he comes out the same way against Washington that he came out against USC, because we were very critical, he said then the criticism should intensify, because you got killed on it in this game. So there's no reason to come out with it the same way, and he didn't. And he didn't. So
much more conservative plan. I went through it. I didn't chart the whole defensive side. I watched the whole defensive side, but I didn't chart the whole defensive side. But the first half was basically 4-2 cover 6, 4-2 cover 4. Not a ton of man coverage, individual one-man pops in the blitz. It was when they did pressure, which they didn't do much. But it was a conservative plan back to fundamentals. And that's what we said, Sam. Remember, we asked what they got to do offensively, defensively. back to fundamentals, and they played a good fundamental game and had a good result.
Yes, sir. Henry McElpine on Facebook says, "I like that they use the tight ends more. Who do you think the third receiver should be? Because he thinks because Morgan drops too many passes."
I think that I think Samaj should be the third receiver, but there may be instances where you want to use somebody else for other situations. So that inside slot guy has got a lot of facets to him, and some guys are really good on option routes, RPO slants, things like that, and other guys are better down the field. Okay, well, vertical routes, corner routes. Some guys are good at all of them. In which case, the guy can play in there every time you go to 11 personnel, he can be in there. But I think that should be probably evaluate what you think the guys do the best and play the guy you think can get it done the most often. Okay, and that's how you have to approach every position. But the slot does have a lot of facets to him. I've had slots that were size of Samaj. When I was Auburn, I had Anthony Mix, who was 6'5" and 240 pounds, played the same position as Samaj now. He brought something different to the table, so we tried to use him in that way.
All right, next question. Coach Borges comes from. This is a comment from Steve Horner. We were talking about RPO tags, and you'd be tempted as a novice to put them on every play, but that it will distort your run pass balance. And we're talking about how Chip doesn't do that. And how many did you say he runs in the second half with no tag?
Well, the last 13 didn't have a tag, and 24 plays that were run, 24 run plays did not have RPO tags on.
Right.
And, that's my philosophy. That doesn't mean it's the end all. So if Joe Moorhead believes what he's doing is right, then God bless Joe Moorhead. But I just have found, and again, I got into the RPO world later in my career. Okay. But ran a lot of them. Okay. Ran a lot of them here, ran a lot of them at San Jose State. And I just found overkill could kill you. Okay. It can get you beat. So you just gotta use it, not abuse it, because it is a fabulous piece of equipment for your offense.
See, I would argue that Joe Moorhead couldn't work for Sharon Moore. I don't think he could.
Possible. Yeah.
This is a guy who rarely ran RPOs. I mean, it's just
there's evidence of it.
Right. It's like, so for Chip to come in and strike the balance that he's striking, you got to understand who your head coach is and what he wants to do. You got to be able to fit into that concept. So the fact that they're running it to this degree and that he's able to strike that balance to the point where you can maintain balance. This is why the nuance that Al pointed out at the beginning of the show is really profound, and people need to seize upon it, because it really speaks to catering to your quarterback's strengths, catering to what your coach wants to do, maintaining balance, keeping your running backs involved. He is feeding all of these mouths at the same time. He is doing an excellent job.
Right. I know my first season at Michigan, and partly into my second season before we got into the more RPOs, is I was criticized heavily for not throwing more bubbles. Rodriguez had thrown a lot of bubbles, and that was kind of their deal. And our philosophy was that we were going to make the receivers block people. We're much like Harbaugh. Okay, very, very similar to Harbaugh. As we got into it, we started using the perimeter RPOs a little bit more because I felt like we had guys that could do it. But at the time, we didn't. And RPOs are fantastic, but they proved that you can win without running any RPOs if you want to. So just, again, there are a lot of ways to skin a cat. And I think somewhere in the middle, and how good your quarterback is at it, determines that decision.
All right.
And situations determine how much of that you're going to do.
You kind of touched on this next question a little bit already, but we can kind of refine the answer a little bit from your perspective as an offensive guy, Al. But Don Vardo on Facebook says defense was just so much better. Coach Borges, what was the difference? Because I felt Washington's offense was as good as USC's. Washington's offense is very good. Their play caller and Jed Fish, or head coach and Jed Fish, is, I think, as good a schemer as Lincoln Riley. So, Al, what did you see as the fundamental difference between Michigan defensively against Washington and Michigan defensively against USC.
Well, I think Washington's offense is damn good. I don't think it's as good as SC's, but it's pretty darn good. And in defense of what Dan's saying, the same thing could have happened if things weren't fixed. But the difference that I could see watching it is just it was just more basic, more they played faster, Sam. There were less errors. It was more, it looked to me anyway, and again, just from the observer's perspective, that they were playing much more fundamentally, much better fundamentally, closing the split zones, closing the counter plays, and that types of thing. Now, I told you this in the box we were playing. Washington's offense is very similar to Michigan's. They do a lot. They run a lot of the same plays. Okay, so it was a little bit of a natural for our defense to do well against them, particularly if they could play fast and eliminate errors, because they see a lot of those plays in practice.
So a couple of factors that stick out to me that really led into that USC game. Number one, if you watch the show that I do with Vance, we have been pointing out some of the issues that you wouldn't call problems, particularly with their run defense, some of the issues that they would have with how they were fitting runs. Vance was pointing out some of the issues that they had with their zone pressures. So USC had a bye before Michigan. They had been embarrassed by Illinois, and they had a whole week, 2 weeks to just really dial Michigan up. And Michigan had some issues that hadn't really been addressed at the same time. And it's a convergence of two really unfortunate circumstances, because you could be, I think, if you're Michigan, fooled into thinking that the issues weren't as big as they were because, your numbers were pretty good.
Mhm.
And you combine that with a guy who's a pretty good schemer with time on his hands to figure out what all your holes were and ways to really dig into them. And that's what happened out there. And then they couldn't adjust on the fly, because I just don't think, in addition to how complex things, or I think they were just too complex for where this defense is. I think they need more of what Wink has than last year's defense did, but clearly it was too much for where this defense is because they couldn't make the adjustments on the fly to plug the holes. So we saw Wink scale back to the degree where they could execute. We got some holes. He's going to come in here talking about Jen, try to do some of the same things. Here's where we can't do what we were trying to. We can't run Bear versus 12 when it's out here looking like 11. They're going to spread these guys out, motion them out, and now we're at a disadvantage number. We can't do that. Let's just play 4-man front. We're going to play a lot of too high safety. We're going to let our guys up front stop the run. You got to be disciplined when you play it. Let's play football that way. Let's be more basic, like Al said. It worked.
Yeah, no, they fixed the problem. Okay, and that's coaching, Sam. That's coaching. As everybody's. I don't care how long you coach. Wink's been doing a long time. I did it for God knows how long. You're going to have. You think you got it pretty well figured out sometimes, and it takes certain opponents to find out maybe you don't have it as well figured out as you think. And those are the times when you got to be brutally honest with yourself and decide, what do we got to do to fix this thing and keep your ego off the shelf? And I think if you can do that and send that same message to the players, you got a chance to recover and improve.
All right. Back to the questions for Al Borges. There's so many. I'll try to get as many of these in as I can. A little late mission for you, aren't late. What's Coach Borges' evaluation of Blake Frazier in relief of Evan Link? That is a great question. What did you think?
I already mentioned this because when he came in the game, and I don't know much about Blake, to be honest with you, so I don't have didn't have a take from the beginning, but I knew he was young and he's a new guy. But when I went through the video, I watched closely how he sounded, because it's a shame with Evan Link, because Evan Link was starting to get it now. I mean, he took some bruises a year ago to get where he's gotten now, where he's become a pretty darn solid entity in that offensive line. So I felt bad for him to start with, but it is football and it does happen. But when Frazier came into the game, let me see, I think it was on around play 13 or 14. So it was pretty early. He had to play. He had to play the better part of the game. Okay, it was before the end of the first quarter. So, but the thing I saw with him, there's a couple of times where he was not stout enough in pass protection, and the guy bull rushed him. But his feet are really good, Sam. He can get himself in position quickly. So when he learns how to tech that up and get a little stronger, he's going to really be a good player. I think he, let me see, on the 4th and 1, 4th and 2, I think on the G lead, he got down good position on the guy, but the guy did what I call pop the top off him and kind of threw him inside and made the play to stop it. And there were others, but as the thing I noticed with him is as the game went on and he got to feeling it a little bit, he looked like he belonged. Now he did have his place because the guy hasn't played enough to go in there and just start kicking ass. You know what I mean? But as the game went on, he got settled in and some of those issues faded and almost went away. So
Yeah,
it wasn't perfect. And I'm sure he'd be the first one to tell you, but for having to do what he had to do, and that he held up fine.
listen, athletically, and I'm not talking about as a lineman, as a blocker. I'm just talking about his pure athleticism now. Athletically, he's superior to Evan Lee, just pure athlete. So, can that translate in pass pro? I think it can. The clear advantage that Evan has on top of experience is, he is a bigger, stronger, burlier guy, right? So in the run game, and even in some respects in pass pro, when you're just trying to just straight block a guy and he's trying to bull rush you, that translates, that size strength advantage. So that's the area where I'm most interested in seeing how Blake holds up, because I think, when it comes to, a kick step and being able to block and
He's
fall
going to
off
be
a
good.
guy,
Yeah.
he's going to be good.
Yeah.
He's going to be really good.
Yeah.
But can he hold up at the point of attack? Will he be able to blow a guy off the ball? He's going to be great when they stretch play. I think he's going to be good. Cave him in. How's he going to be with that? It's going to be interesting to.
Most of the times I graded him down was finishing blocks. Okay, he'd engage him. His steps were good. His hand placement was good, but the guy, he couldn't finish through the whole play, and the guy may fall off late and make a tackle or be in on a tackle. Those were most of the minuses that I had on him. But boy, I tell you, I liked what I saw. I think that kid's got a great future when he gets a little stronger and plays a little more. I think that you're going to have a real nice product there.
Man, our people, you guys ask excellent questions. Bright Michigan fans. This is what I love. And that's how I knew we had some Buckeye trolls last week, because there was some dumb stuff coming out. I was like, this can't be a Michigan fan. There's a whole lot of dumb stuff coming out of this dude's mouth. All right. Let's get back to the questions for Al. And the next one comes from, let's see. This one from Steve Horn. Gorgeous. On the second 4th down call that got stopped, do you think Chip thought it was 4th and 1 with the initial spot? Instead, it was 4th and a long 2. The call seemed off for that distance.
Yeah, you could make a case for that, but G Lead's been such a good play. That's the play I was talking about.
Yeah,
yeah. G Lead's been such a good play. I mean, and I would venture to say that when they run G Lead, it averages more than 2 yards a carry. So it is a go-to play in that instance, and I'm sure it was on their short yardage chart. So you can run it, you block it right, you got it. Okay, and they were close, but that's only good in hand grenades and horseshoes. So But to say, was it a bad call? Nah, not really. They had everybody targeted for the most part. They were all up in there. There was gonna be somebody free, but you were hopefully he was gonna be far enough from the line of scrimmage where the back could get the 2 yards. So no, I don't think it was a bad call. I just think they played better on that down than we did.
All right. Here's one from Nala 846. Marshall, number 83, who had an outstanding game.
Yeah. And how many times have you heard his name mentioned, Sam?
Yeah, man. I those two tight ends. Zack especially, because he was good from start to finish. Tonielli really came on as the game went on, but Zack, man, kudos to you. I saw him with his family. They were awesome. Just big time performance. But it says he looks a lot more confident in the pass game and blocking in this game compared to the Oklahoma game. Kudos to the young fella. I couldn't echo that sentiment anymore.
No, I told you.
Now he's big.
I was most concerned about the inline blocking when you have to replace your tight ends. I'm just telling you, man, that can get dicey because when you put young guys in there, they're sometimes a little light. And when I say light, not big enough to block a stout 7 technique. That's the prime first example. I always ask myself with a tight end, can he block a stout 7 or get his ass kicked with dignity? Okay. And by that meaning he hassles him enough where the play gets started, not necessarily knocks him off the ball because that's a tall order. Well, these guys hassled him enough to get the play started with some consistency. And it was really nice to see, knowing that now you may have 4 tight ends when they're all healthy. So that was good to see.
Yeah, man. Those tight ends stepped up absolutely. Both starting tight ends out, and you knew tight end. That's where the matchup was. You had 2 6'4" corners out there. Priceock is coming up on draft boards. And my man on the other side, whose name is escaping me at the moment, but the transfer from Arizona that Michigan looked at, I think he's absolutely a pro. You know, he's going to be a second, third round pick, I think. And so, not to say that Michigan wasn't going to throw it to their receivers, but the better matchups were inside, and you can see it early in the game. I mean, Tonielli came wide open down the seam. So, man, those guys stepped up absolutely huge in this game. Al, next one comes from, let's see. People said, "Oh, you was stealing signs." Oh, you was stealing signs. Yeah, that happens. That's every game. There's sign stealers still out there. Get to the next question. And it comes from, let's go to a super chatter. Flex Fit. The Sam Webb top 3 coaching bums of the week.
Don't encourage him. Dream any Christmas. He had to ask that question because it's a super chat, but now I got to listen to him.
Coaching bums of the week. Al Borges. I mean, we got some candidates now.
Yeah, Sam. It says Sam. Let me. It doesn't say Al. It doesn't say Gorgeous or whatever. It says Sam. Let me get.
I know you don't like to. I know you don't like to hear this, but bro, now the Stanford Cardinal, do they even have like a full-time coach? They got an interim coach out there at Stanford right now, right?
Yeah, I think it's
how if you are trying to keep your job at Florida State. How, Al Borges, do you go out? How do you go out there? How do you lose to Stanford? You can't lose to Stanford. I mean, you aren't doing yourself any favors. That's horrible. That's bumbling.
But I stayed up and watched that game. Okay, I couldn't sleep, so I watched that and Stanford totally outplayed them. I mean, that's how you do it. Stanford played their butt off, particularly on defense. They played well. They played keep away on offense. Florida State was not making the plays when they had to make the plays. And it was, if you didn't know anything about either team, you'd say Stanford's a better team, period. But I think I know better than that. And I'm not sure if they played 10 times the same result would happen. But that's what happened.
Well, another coaching bum, Al. Now you might want to plug your ears for this because it's a school near and dear to your heart.
Oh, here we go.
You know, he's a super freak and he doesn't have the 1-800 sex lines to call anymore to help him out, to give him a distraction. But Hugh Freeze. Hugh Freeze
man.
is a coaching bum. It's so bad for Hugh.
Oh,
Hugh was like, hey, my AD, it sure would be nice if my AD gave me a vote of confidence. Hey, can you please tell me you love me? Tell me you love me, AD. Tell me you need me. Tell me you want me. Please, baby, please, AD. Please, baby, AD.
yeah. Boy, yeah.
I
watch them every week, Sam. I got to because my son loves Auburn, okay? He calls me up complaining like a disgruntled fan all the time. Will you shut up? Remember who you're talking to here, okay? But yeah.
Al, you think I'm making that up, right?
What's that?
Al, you think I'm making that up about Hugh Freeze, don't you?
No,
do you know
he
begged
I don't think you're making it up.
He begged the AD to give him a vote of confidence. Yeah. He said the AD's really not talking to me, but it sure would help me if he gives me a vote of confidence. That's a quote. That's a quote, Al.
Well, here's the message to you is start winning some games and you get that vote, because it's just there's a point where if the AD tells you that he's giving you a vote of confidence, the alumni are going to not give him a vote of confidence. Okay, so this is a results-oriented business. Okay, and people, unfortunately, and I've lived this. Trust me, I'm not picking on Hugh or anybody else. So I'm just telling you.
I know you can't, Al.
There is. I'm not trashing football coaches. End of discussion. I've been in that too many times. I will critique them, but I will not trash them. So, but that's the hey, winning cures all ill, Sam. Right? The AD will be happy to give you a vote of confidence if you can put some wins back to back. And they got the rest of their schedule. They got a chance to do that. And they beat Alabama. It's amazing how they forgive you when you do that. So,
yeah, that's not happening anytime soon. Those type of wins out there.
Yeah.
No, bro. Not happening. Not happening at all. The last one, I'm tempted to go with Michigan State and Jonathan Smith. You know, but I mean, who expected them to beat IU? That was never going to happen over there. So I'm going to have to go to the NFL, the National Football League, and Mike McDaniel. When he was asked, Al Borges, about his quarterback, Tua Tagovailoa, he was asked, are you going to make
it? This guy's press conferences, so I can't wait to hear this. Go ahead.
He said they asked me, man, your quarterback, he can't bust the grade. He can't throw the football across the street. You're thinking about bitching your quarterback and doing something different? Because I think they're like 1-6 or something like that. And he said, well, no, I'm not going to bench my quarterback. We're going to stay with the same guy. I'm going to put him out there this week. I just hope he goes out there and doesn't throw 10 interceptions. Al, I think that counts him as one of the 3 coaching bums of the week, because he just said, I'm going to put my quarterback out there and hope he doesn't throw 10 interceptions. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't think that inspires much confidence from the team. From the owner, from the GM, certainly not the quarterback. If you just say, well, damn, coach.
No, and what's funny about that whole thing, Sam, is Coach McDaniel does not exactly look like a football coach, okay? But when he was doing better, his personality was quaint. Everybody just thought it was, this guy's clever and smart. But now that they're not, he's just, a little dweeb as far as everybody else is concerned. And I think both are wrong, okay? But I don't know if that was the best way to address that question. I will say that.
Yeah, I could do that all day. Don't give me coaching bum questions now. That's the worst thing you could do, flex fit. But thank you. I appreciate that. Al doesn't, but I do. All right. On to the next question for Al Borges. There was a great one about
that guy paid you $10, Sam, to answer that question. Holy smoke. I got to go into the super chat business.
Oh, my God. Yeah, that was great. That was great. That was awesome. Here's one. Al, On that 3rd and 11 play, this is from Nile 846, saw some people saying Bryce was throwing it to Marsh, and due to the pressure in his face, the ball sailed. Is that correct, or was it intended for Tonielli?
No, I think it was intended for Tonielli. I do. I think he's intended for Tonielli. I don't think, no.
Man, who was that hating on Bryce?
I don't know. That might be a sneaky Buckeye fan, too.
Yeah, man, somebody hating on Bryce.
Also, way too accurate to be intended for. He's saying he's trying to throw the dig, I think, because there was a dig guy, something coming up. I can't remember. But no, I don't think so. But,
Wow. All right, here's one from Grant Info 5165. Hey, Grant, what is the one improvement at this point in the season Bryce needs to work on? I know you're going to say more than one, but what's the biggest one you would say, Al?
Footwork, I think, still, particularly in drop back passing. I think that. And then I think as that gets better, and it has somewhat, okay, that the reads will get better because the timing will get better. And when you see the throws, for example, like early in the game, I think it was maybe the first or second play. What did I have? A bubble line. Yeah. It was the first play of the game. It was an incomplete pass to the ex receiver, I believe. But I felt like he could have thrown that in the first window. Okay. And I think if your footwork's right, you'll see it better. Okay. But, and people could argue that one. I mean, I don't know, but that's how I saw it. And it just led to a bad throw. Little things like that. You know what I mean? Little things like that. There's so many small things in quarterback play that can tear your game down a little bit. And footwork with me is always at the top of the list. Okay, because it has so much to do with your vision, has so much to do with your balance, has so much to do with your decision making. Okay, and when it's not right, ball comes out late, or you just don't see the throw or whatever. So I think that's if I had one ingredient, I think that still can improve some.
All right, here's another good one for you, Al. You talked about Blake here a bit, and you evaluated him. This is another great question. This is a Lama Bryant, but a different tag at the end. This is a question for Al. Is the extended time starting? Is the extended time out? I assume for starting left tackle Evan Link. Is that a concern for the offensive line cohesion over the next few games?
Well, losing your left tackle is always a concern, and no ifs, ands, or buts about that one. But again, it's you just have to have the next man up mentality, okay? And don't make too much of it, okay? And know who's replacing him and what his skill set is, and whether he's going to need help in pass protection or combo blocks or whatever. And you may have to tweak a few schemes to help the new guy. But in terms of destroying the continuity of the offensive line, I doubt seriously if that's going to happen. They're just going to have to maybe make some adjustments for him.
So there's been a discussion going on about Giovanni El-Hadi. Curious your take on this. I'll put up a couple of different posts here from people. Kurt Davis said, I feel like El-Hadi has been a downgrade since he's been back. Am I crazy? And then there's been a couple of other people that have chimed in on that, Al. And Kurt Davis, he came back also on Facebook to ask the same question. Kwame Tumasi, says his pass pro was not bad. Ignore those PFF grades. Steve Horn says, I always ignore PFF. Kwame says El-Hadi was clearing lanes, man. The man played well. And Kurt Davis says, I give him thumbs down in pass protection. What did you think of El-Hadi?
El-Hadi was I would have given him a C to C plus in this game. He's a lunch pail guy. You know what I mean? He's a guy, shows up, tough, blocks hard, does some things that kind of are exemplary for the rest of the offensive line. But to say that he's a real talented offensive lineman, I don't know that he's like Olu or like Zenter, anybody like that. So he plays within his skill set pretty well. But again, I think he's still kind of getting his sea legs back because he hasn't played in a while. He was not awful. I would not say that, but I still think he played better earlier in the year. I felt I had graded him better earlier in the year. But I think he's going to be fine. I think he's a good, solid player who's tough and sends a message to the people around him that he's going to always play hard and know who the hell to block. And that part of it, coaches appreciate, I can tell you. But I think give him a chance to play a little bit more now that he's back, and I think you'll get what you had earlier in the season.
What do you read? Yellow Boy 243 says, I saw Sharon with the play sheet. I think they're I think they're sharing play calling under Sharon as OC. The game plan was identical. I think you're reading too much into that. I think that Sharon in crucial situations, Al, I think he has say, but I don't think he's lording over Chip in the play calling.
No, I know he's not. I'm just going to tell you right now, he's not. Now, this is the way that works. So, you know, most head coaches have a call sheet in their hands, even when they're not calling plays. So that can be a little deceiving. Some don't, but most do. I know Andy Reid, even when he didn't call the plays, always had a call sheet in front of him because he wanted to know what the best call is. But understand something, okay? Certain situations in football are already scripted out what they're going to call in that situation. You understand? So, if you get to 4th and 2, we're going to run a G lead. We sat in a meeting, talked about it, approved. Everybody gave it the rubber stamp, and that's what we're going to do. We'll live or die with it. Into discussion, okay? First time we get in 3rd down, we're going to throw this pass. So there are certain things that are completely preconceived before. But as the game goes on, okay, the play caller, particularly on 1st and 2nd down, in what is generally normal down and distance, is basically calling the play on his own. And that's what Chip Lindsey's doing. He's calling it. What would lend you to believe that he is when did you ever see Sharon Moore call 17 RPOs? Okay?
Right.
So
right.
Now what he could have done, I don't know. I don't think he did this either, but he could have said, okay, we're at the end. Don't tag RPOs anymore. But I think Chip just did that. I don't think that was Sharon, but it might have been. Who knows? I don't know. I've never asked him that or any of that, but I know that this play calling is different than they've had in the past. Well, that tells you right now that there's a different guy calling it. Okay, so no, I don't think that. And it's not that the head coach doesn't reserve the right to occasionally step in. Particularly, he's an offensive coach who's been a coordinator. Now, I was in that situation a couple of times. I was in that situation when I was at Oregon with Mike Bellotti. But he would occasionally he would step in and say, hey, they haven't stopped at power yet, man. Don't be afraid to run at it. And say, hey, look, the guy's done it before. Listen to what he's saying, right? This is some layman. So they may make a suggestion here and maybe even once in a while step in and say, run this. Well, if he's a head coach, you run what he runs. But I don't think that's going on a hell of a lot. I just don't.
Only time for a couple of more for Al. Coach Borges. This is for Spoon Jammin'. Says, Coach Gorgeous, looking ahead to little brother. Love you already. What do you think would be our biggest strength against their defense?
I think just watching them, I think you can run the ball on them.
100%.
I think you can run the ball on them. I think and our schemes fit what other people have done to them. Okay, we're going to have to execute and do all that like always, but I think that it's a game where you can run the football, number one, and still be balanced. If there are 20 to 25 passes thrown in this game, I see that as a possibility. Again, the RPO game will play a part in that to a degree. But I think I would start with the nuts and bolts of what Michigan football is all about. Outside zone, duo plays, inside zone, pop in a power, pop in a counter every so often, pop in an insert every so often. They've done that in almost every game, and I think that stuff's all good against them. Change your looks. You can see Michigan's still into all the movement, a lot of shifting before the snap of the ball, messing with the defense's force man, messing with their front, those types of things. I think just a standard thinking with a little nuance with formation and such, and maybe a couple of new ad plays, and I think they'll be good to go if they just don't give them any short range opportunities with turnovers.
Yeah, what's their biggest weakness on defense? They couldn't stop a good high school team from running the football. That's their biggest weakness. I'm
Yeah.
just telling you, you can run a football. You can run the football on them.
Mhm.
So it's gonna be their hope is this is a high scoring game and they're really rolling offensively. They are going to have to commit everything they have to stopping Michigan from running the football. Um,
Yeah.
and hope that if they do that, they have some success putting Michigan in poor down and distance situations, and that Bryce can't hit some passes in those scenarios. I don't think that'll be a successful plan, but that's their hope. They can't stop the run.
Yeah. I think you're going to see a lot of safeties close to the line of scrimmage. We've seen that in the past, right? That's not news. Okay. But to get them to have any chance to stop the run, you're going to have some free hitters and risk some balls going over your head in terms of the single coverage and such, right? So I would anticipate plenty of that.
Yeah, and so that gets specific as we round things out. There are specific questions about Michigan State. Al, what are your 3 offensive keys to winning the Michigan State game? 3 keys.
Well, you always start with turnovers just to take care of the ball, number one, because that'll get you beat, especially in a game where you're going to be heavily favored. Okay. That'll get you beat faster than anything because lose possession, give them short range opportunities before you know it, you're playing against the scoreboard. That ain't good. And number 2 is be able to rush the ball inside and outside. And that's what I think Michigan's really gotten better at is the diversity of their running game. Not that the ball always goes outside, but so often it's attacking the outside and forcing the defense to run. So I think running the football, with good efficiency and making all the routine plays. When it's there, make them pay. Those 3 things, okay? Take care of the ball, run the ball with efficiency in the same manner and fashion that you've done in the first games, the games before. And when they give you something, take it. Don't shoot yourself in the foot and have buyer's remorse. You call the play.
You think Bryce will run? Michael Andrew Bateman says, "Will Bryce run more in this game?" You think?
No, I think they'll always have a certain amount of plays that are in there. Now, whether they call them or not, I think the game flow will determine a lot of that. Okay, he had one, but he didn't really have a design run in this game. There was a pull late in the game on its own play. Okay, where the end just crashed in, so he pulled the ball out. But in terms of +1 runs, where he was definitely getting it, I don't think he had one because I don't believe there's a quarterback draw. Oh, he had one. I take that back. Inside the 5-yard line, they ran that little
it got blew up.
play. It got blown up because they brought the safety off the edge. But that was, I think, the only play I had that was purely designed for him to carry the ball. But I would say that they'll have a couple, but I don't know that they'll have a bunch.
I gotta believe they'll bring that Bluff back because it was there. It was there for a big play.
That too is that's just as much chance that gets handoff as it gets pulled. So that too is another play that he could optionally carry the ball or not. So it's not really a +1.
+1, right. But you've made the point. It kind of skews towards a pull. You kind of lean towards a pull.
Leans towards a pull. It does. But I've watched those things time and time again. Like you've told me a couple times, Al, they didn't run a bluff zone in this game. I said, hell, they didn't. They ran 3. and he said, no. I go, no, he just handed the ball off. You know what I mean? People say, well, they're not throwing any RPOs. Well, hell no, they got 10 RPOs called and they ran 8 of them, So, it's all what the defense does.
Yeah. J.R. Morris, S4P says, Al, do you think we see more 12 personnel moving forward with this offense, or do you think they're more productive in 11 personnel?
I think the mix of the two is the best answer. And if these tight ends are going to continue to play the way they've played, I think 12 personnel, as it always has, is going to be a big part of their plan because they certainly didn't do anything to discourage me from putting them into the game. So, yeah, I think 12 will be, but you'll see as much 11 as 12, if not more, depending on how they feel they can attack the defense.
We'll make this be the last one. Al, reigning threes, 24 says, did you see the pass run splits in the second half versus the first half? Seems like a major adjustment we made to run the ball. And suddenly we look like the Michigan we know and love. Did you think that was a halftime adjustment, Al?
Well, yeah, I think it is to a degree, but you got to remember that the ball was run 13 consecutive times, but that was, winding the time off the clock. That was
Yes, sir.
situationally done.
Yeah.
But that said, in defense of what he's talking about, there was an emphasis on running the football in the second half. And as I look at it, from play 57 on, there was only one pass thrown, and that was the little naked reverse he threw when the tight end was wide open in the corner for touchdown. But even before that, you got open zone, insert zone, split zone line, counterplay, 4 runs in a row, a split stretch for a touchdown, 14 yards. So there was definitely, without question, an emphasis on running the ball more in the second half. And running the ball is a lot like passing the ball. You get in rhythm, the line and the backs get in rhythm, and you just start pounding the rock until the rock cracks. And that's really what kind of happened in the game. The rock cracked. They just didn't get to that in the first half like they did in the second.
Yeah. I said, no, this is the last one. Al, how much do college OCs and head coaches look at NFL offenses for more information? The talk of this season is the Colts offense being so dominant. It's all due to schemes, not so much to player talent.
Well,
I don't
promise you player talent's got something to do with it, okay? It's never all about schemes. But guys do have some clever schemes. And I looked at everything. NFL teams, college teams, lower college teams that were 1AA teams. If they had a good, so I heard them. I would steal a play. I stole more plays than you can count, and had more plays that you can count stolen from me than any coach that coached 30 years of coordinating offense. Okay, that's just the way you do it. If there's a scheme you can borrow, there's no patent on any of this stuff. Okay, you can take it and they can take yours. So it means scoring another point. Do some research, man, and it's fun. I just loved that part of coaching is putting on a bit. Hey, let's watch. Let's see what Florida State's really run the ball. Let's see what they're doing. So we look at them. The Indianapolis Colts when Peyton was there, and boy, they're doing a great job with one back office. Let's look and see what they're doing. Or what we did is we actually visited teams that we were really curious about and talked to them, pro teams or college teams that you weren't going to play. So
yeah. I know for a fact that the Lions ran one of Michigan's plays. I think and the 49ers, I think, may have. I know the Lions. I know Michigan saw the Bears run one. There was a quarterback run.
It was a bluff run.
Yeah. It was a bluff run that they got from.
And the Lions, I don't know if they stole it from Michigan or not, but it was exactly the same play. It was a fake reverse, tight end wheel up the sideline. And let's say they got exactly the same result, and Michigan did it first. Okay, yeah. So it was almost too much of a coincidence to be a coincidence, but I don't know.
Yeah,
I can't say for sure.
Yep. Great stuff as always, Coach Borges. Appreciate your time, my friend. Looking forward to seeing the Wolverines take on Sparty, and we'll be here next week to talk all about it. Until then, folks, thanks for watching. Be sure to tune right in. I'm going right from here to the breakdown with Van. So get out of this one, go over to that room, and we'll do the defensive breakdown. So see you over there. Thanks for watching another edition of the Michigan Football Breakdown focused on the offense with Al Borges.
Go Blue.